we now move on to my round 3 game from the European sort of Club Cup, and this was quite a critical game. I was feeling quite confident here because I played 2 quite interesting games up to this point. My opponent was the strong, I believe Croatian Serbian player, Palac, who's 2600 strength, maybe just a bit over 2600. I had the white pieces, and it was an interesting game. Again, I tried e4, so I started with this move. I was in aggressive mood, so I thought I'd play this, and after my King's Gambit from the round before, I thought it'd be quite a good choice to play. My opponent entered into a Sicilian, and here I played a move which has been very successful to me, knight to c3. And this is the Grand Prix attack, and I've started playing this move after Dwayne Jones filmed a DVD for Gingergm, and I sat through the filming of this DVD, watched the DVD when I was editing it, and basically this DVD taught me everything that I needed to know in order to play this opening. So if you're out there and you're interested in, you want an opening against a Sicilian where there's not too much theory, but you still get good attacking positions, then I heartily recommend you purchase this Grand Prix DVD. I mean, this has brought me a number of victories over 2,600 players already. My opponent played d6. I saw that my opponent before the game was a Najdorf player, which means he likes to enter the Najdorf variation Sicilian, and if he plays a number of other moves here, he wouldn't be able to enter that system. But by playing d6, if I now go, for example, knight to f3, he plays knight to f6, d4, cd, knight takes, he can play a6 entering the Najdorf, which he knows very well. But after d6, I can now play f4, and this is one of my favourite ways of playing against with the Grand Prix against the Sicilian. My opponent played g6, I played knight to f3, bishop g7, and now the move that Dwayne suggested, bishop b5 check. And this is a very clever move actually, which has a subtle point. Originally white used to play bishop to c4 in this position, but after the sequence of events, knight c6, something like, I think castles here, is that correct? Yeah, castles. Black now has some other options. For example, knight to f6 is meant to be one quite decent way of playing here. The point being that now if white plays e5, black can capture on e5, and now capture this way. Now after knight takes e5, queen to d4 check, and this is quite a well-known way that black can play, which is a good response to bishop c4 and this system, knight f6. But after bishop b5 check originally here, bishop to d7 is the main move. I consider knight to c6 to actually be a mistake, even though it has been played by a number of good players, because I think white gets a very pleasant position after simply capturing on c6 and continuing like this with, well, go to Dwayne's DVD if you need to know more. But the point being, after bishop b5, bishop d7, white now has placed bishop to c4, and after knight c6 castles, knight to f6 would now be a mistake, because you can play e5. And unlike the variation before, black can no longer capture twice on e5 and go queen to d4 check, because the bishop on d7 is actually an obstruction on this square. It actually benefits white having black having this bishop on d7. So it's a very crafty move order, this bishop to b5 check. And okay, after this castles, my opponent played a move which I believe Anand played. Now I think in this position actually Magnus Carlsen played d3 here rather than castles kingside, and this d3 move is a slight error, because after castles, knight to a5, if your pawn's on d3, you have to allow your light square bishop to be exchanged. But in this position, I can actually just play bishop to e2, and it's like a reverse classical Dutch structure here, but I'm very comfortable position for white, and I'm very at home in these kind of positions where your plan is, well, let's just have a look what happened in the game. Knight to a6, d3, castles, and now the typical plan. Well, I could go queen to e1 here, but f5 looks like a very interesting possibility, and already I was extremely comfortable with the way the opening had turned out. I mean, if my opponent plays something like e6, then I can just take on g6. Probably has to take the f-pawn, otherwise he's going to be get mated. And now I can consider moves like bishop g5, queen e1 to h4, and a very comfortable position. Knight on a5 is clearly out of play. Anyway, my opponent did take on f5, which is very risky. And now the next manoeuvre, like the Dutch defence, the queen comes over to the king side. queen e1. My opponent rerouted his knight on a5 into the centre, and now queen to g3. And I could go queen to h4, but I was trying to force him to play king to h8 here, and then after this move I was going to play queen to h4 anyway. And I thought his king would be a lot worse placed on h8 here because of tricks with my knight coming to g5, and his pawn would be pinned after h6. So queen to g3, just a simple attacking move. My opponent took on e4. I didn't get involved in any complications, I took back. And he's in a lot of danger here, his king, just for the sake of one pawn. So, I mean, bishop h6 ideas, lots of strong attacking ideas here. He played knight to g4, which is quite an interesting idea. His knight wants to go to e5 and then to g6 to defend this way. So I stopped this idea. Remember, when you're playing, you have to always try to stop your opponent's possibilities. I played knight to h4, attacking his knight on g4 with my bishop. The knight came back to e5, and now knight to f5. My opponent's really forced to take this knight, because if he goes knight to g6, I can take on g7 and go h4, and this is very difficult for my opponent to handle. So after knight to f5, my opponent took here, and now I took back with the pawn, stopping his plan of going knight to g6, blocking the file. Bishop h6 is the threat, so king to h8 is played, and now my knight jumps into d5. Well, the idea was to stop e6 because I can play f6, but actually he could have tried this and rook g8, which would have been very interesting. But let's move on to the last part of the game now. I've clearly got a big attack. We'll just zoom through the next couple of moves. Knight to d7, trying to guard f6, and now my idea is to double up on the h file and attack him on h7. Queen h3, knight to s6. Don't really want to exchange pieces, and my pieces are pretty good. Here, rook f4, d4, knight to f1. Now it looks like he's made some progress, but actually my pieces are rearranged to better squares. My rook coming across, my knight coming in. So knight to e5, rook to h4, and now he has to create some counterplay to c4. And I brought my bishop out, and he plays d3. If he doesn't play this, he's just going to get checkmated. So he's doing well to gain some counterplay. Took on e5, he took on e2, and now knight to e3. And his bishop on g7 is very weak, and I have a good attack, but I still have no clear breakthrough because his bishop on g7, well, it may look weak, but it's actually a very good defender of the black king. I mean, after queen b6, I broke this pin, and he went queen a6. I have no clear breakthrough here. I spent a lot of time concentrating on knight to d5 here. And but there's nothing. Actually, I don't have an attack here. Even with all these pieces around his king, he's very safe after rook on f d8. And then if I take on f6, he can just take back. And what do I do here? Because his queen can always take the bishop, and there's no clear breakthrough even in this position, which is very surprising. But his bishop on g7 is a very good defender. So instead, I just try to keep the position under control, pick up as the e2 pawn, and then continue with my attack. So rook to e1. Opponent attacked this bishop, and I went bishop to c3. I want to keep this bishop as it's a very good attacking force. Queen b5, and now again I couldn't see any way through on the h file, so I changed my plan, pick up the e2 pawn. b4, bishop to e5, rook d5, and now very critical position here. We're both getting short on time, and I think the next move really won me the game. Because he's fighting back hard. He's got a pin, he's moved his rook, he's got control of d-file, so it's very easy to let the position slip away. For example, I took on f6 here. If I had taken this pawn, after bishop takes rook somewhere, I think he's perfectly fine here. His bishop's a very good piece. And yeah, this doesn't look good, but the idea behind my play was that after bishop to g3, I'm going to go king to h1 next, and I'm hoping his pawn on c4, his rook's going to fall apart. He actually played rook takes f5 here, which is a mistake, because now my tactical shot, can you see it, was bishop to c7. He's relying on the pin on my knight, so that his rook's okay, but this distracts basically his queen away, and now I've just gained a completely winning position. So it's just this little tactic of, first of all, moving my bishop away, keeping my pawn on f5. If he takes on f5, I've got this tactic. If he doesn't take on f5, then his c4 pawn drops, or I have quite good initiative still. He can still play c3 here, and this is indeed what he should have played, but in the game it went here. Queen to c5 would have failed to rook takes c4, and again his queen is forced off the long diagonal, so this wouldn't help. So the game finished, queen takes c7, and he played on for a bit because he was in time trouble. Around here I was just trying to force his queen to the sideline, and we're soon to see that his position crumbles around this point. Hasn't really got any defence, and now this is the nice winning move here. His queen has defensive opportunities of coming back this way, so after c3 this blocks the queen's escape route. The point being a3, I now play queen f5 check here, and rook takes h6 check, with checkmate to follow after knight takes h6, queen to f6 check, queen to g7 checkmate. So I think that was a very good game for the opening here. I mean, the key points were this bishop to b5 check, and then bishop to c4. Another key point was playing this d3, castle, earlier on before d3, and then when the bishop's attacked, just dropping it back. And then in a standard position like this, just get on with the attack, f5, and all at the sake of a pawn, I gained a very good attack and a very good initiative, which helped me win the game. So, quite a nice game. Grand Prix can be bought in our store, and I'm sure that video will help you play like this.